Hello and welcome to another episode of the GodisaGeek Retrocast. This is the final entry of our Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles month, and joining me in the hot seat is my fellow co-host Robin Parker.
Hello there.
So as you can see, this week we're going to be tackling the one-on-one beat-em-up that is Turtles Tournament Fighters. Quite an unusual implementation of the Ninja Turtles license. I think it's probably one of the last games that covered the original series as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there are 3 different versions of the game released across Super NES, Mega Drive, and even NES. It was actually the very last Konami game developed for the NES in North American Power region. That was in '94. So yeah, I mean, as we were tackling Hyperstone Heist last week, which was '93. This is even further down the line, where people were probably even less interested in the Turtles.
I think it's that same year, in fact, which is I think it's probably closest to the end of that year. As you say, it's not really based on the cartoon as such. I think it's based on elements of some of the comics as well, which is a message from Karai, which I believe is the person vying to succeed Shredder after he's defeated in the comics.
Yeah, some of it is very, some of it would definitely not ring a bell to fans of the cartoons at all. I mean, there are 10 out of the 10 playable characters in the Super NES version. Only sort of 4 of them, maybe 5, would really be recognisable to fans of the cartoons. There's a lot of ones who come straight out of the comics.
Yeah, it's definitely another odd one. It's very puzzling that there aren't some of the more recognisable characters in there.
Yeah, there's no Bebop, no Rocksteady, no Baxter Stockman, lots of ones. Sort of household names at the time, the bad guys that don't really make it into this game.
Certainly. I mean, this looks like a mechanised Shredder here.
Yeah, I think he's... I can't even remember this one's name. It's almost like there was the robot versions of the Turtles, like the Metalhead, that one. And I think that, like as you say, this is a similar idea to that.
So Michelangelo right off the bat spitting out some sort of fireball from his gob.
Yeah, they had to add some, rather than just keeping to the punching and kicking we've seen in all the other sort of melee style Turtles games. They obviously had to bow to one-on-one beat 'em up conventions a little bit and add some more special moves like fireballs and throws and things, which you'd more associate with a Street Fighter type title. Because you got to please those beat 'em up fans.
You do. It's I think it was the first time I probably played this game in about 10 years, and I must say that the controls are relatively sluggish, and it's not always easy to use some of those special moves, and some of those special moves are very unconventional. It's not you can do some of these special moves and they barely connect with the other character, and some of them leave you very open to attack as well.
Yeah, I think you really had to know when and where to use these different moves. They're not as well balanced, I don't think, because it's sort of a Street Fighter move set. You've got a lot of... I mean, although it appears sometimes on screen that the action's moving pretty quickly, like you say, it was difficult to control at times. You did feel like what you're doing wasn't really happening on screen.
No, you're certainly lacking some of the responsiveness that you would get in a Street Fighter 2 or an SNK brawler. It's definitely... I mean, Konami aren't really known for one-on-one beat-em-ups, and I think this shows why.
Yeah, they definitely... It was an interesting foray into the genre, but it definitely didn't seem like a particularly successful one for Konami, and they didn't really encourage them to come back to the genre.
No, definitely not. I mean, I found this game pretty difficult. You're going to see me die quite a few times as we go through this little playthrough here. Very tricky.
Yeah. No, I mean, as I said earlier, there was also a NES version of the game. It was even less characters in that one. I think it's only 8 in total. But then you did have you had Casey Jones, who didn't feature in the SNES version, so he was someone who was a bit more recognisable. But it was even more simplistic, and I did suffer quite badly from graphical errors, graphical glitches as well, as you could imagine with a fighting game on the NES.
Especially a late NES game as well, where they're really trying to push the system.
Exactly, it's just couldn't quite handle what they were trying to do.
So here's a very random place to fight a battle in with a giant toad in the background.
Yeah, as you do normally. I think definitely in the. I'm not sure if it was in this one, but definitely in the Mega Drive version, you go to Dimension X, which was sort of the setting for a lot of the later Turtles comics, and I think it did appear in the later cartoons, but that was again once less people were watching the cartoons, it was definitely losing its popularity. It started moving away from Shredder-based storylines into Dimension X, and I don't think fans really sort of got on with that storyline quite as much.
No, I mean I remember Dimension X being mentioned a lot in the cartoons originally, and it's always seen as this place where Krang and his ilk come from, but you never saw anything of it until a lot later on.
No, it was certainly the Earth-based episodes which proved more popular.
Certainly.
With the fans of the cartoon, at least. Possibly not the comics, but then the comics were radically different.
Oh, certainly. There's definitely is a great gulf between the original Image comics and the very kidified cartoon.
Yeah, as with the removal of the word ninja from anywhere possible.
Well, yeah, that was a very British thing, thanks to the censorship, and somehow the cartoon managed to keep Michelangelo's nunchucks, even though they were illegal in this country.
Yeah, I remember that well.
So one of those weird things. I mean, this game's it's got its fair share of modes, if I remember correctly. I mean, there's this story mode here, but there's also a tournament mode as well, which takes the standard, fight so many enemies and then a boss.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely quite sort of brave at the time, and there was a sort of dearth of beat 'em ups, especially on the Mega Drive. It did need a few good beat 'em up, but unfortunately this one just didn't really fit the bill.
Yeah, I think after Street Fighter 2, I think every developer did try their best to come up with some sort of one-on-one beat 'em up. I mean, there was that Double Dragon one that made its way onto the Neo Geo, and the likes of Primal Rage, Killer Instinct, Weapon Lords. I think the 16-bit was the one-on-one fighting generation.
Yeah, but I mean, it has to be said that most of the really great ones only ever did really come out on Neo Geo. I mean, aside from Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat, the best ones were almost entirely confined to the Neo Geo.
Yeah, that's right.
SNES and Mega Drive tried, the developers tried very hard, and there were loads of beat 'em ups, but none of them really matched up to a Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat.
Definitely not.
Here you're fighting Wingnut, who did appear in the cartoons, but I think he's pictured quite differently here, sort of drawn in very different style.
Well, I mean, the cartoon did have a host of a lot of various special guests and enemies and allies, and the likes of the Rat King, which I believe is in this game as well.
Yeah, he does feature here. Yeah,
I believe he's either a boss or a hidden character, if I remember correctly. And of course, in the cartoon you had other random characters even from other comics entirely.
Yeah, some crossovers and such. But just didn't really make most. I mean, you could have had a massive roster of fighters on this game. It didn't really make the most of the license in that regard.
No, I mean...
here's Rat King, yeah.
Yeah, there we
go. He's drawn quite in a recognisable style. You could probably tell that was Rat King compared to some of the other characters.
Yeah.
But as you said, the background stages make no real sense at all. You're fighting Rat King on what looks like a game show.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost implied that this is all a TV show of some sort. That's always the impression I got playing this game.
Yeah, I think although there was a bit of a story behind this, that they'd all entered a tournament with Shredder to try and beat Shredder because he'd entered it, but it was all really took a back seat, and that wasn't really a very important aspect of the game. As is the case in a lot of beat 'em ups, admittedly.
Certainly, I mean, some beat 'em ups did try their best to come up with some sort of story to narrate it all, or in other cases they were just like, it's just a tournament, people are going to fight in it, let's see who wins.
Yeah, it's the beat 'em up cliche, but it's still done. Tekken, Dead or Alive, they still just go with the whole tournament idea. They don't really elaborate upon it. It's I suppose it's gameplay over story in these type of games anyway, really.
Yeah, in the most case, I mean, you can put a story over a character any way you like, but in most cases, it's not exactly going to be a blockbuster story, is it?
No, if the gameplay doesn't hold up, you're not really going to care about the story a lot in a beat 'em up.
Round 3. So here you see I'm really getting my arse kicked. He's a bit of a tough enemy, this guy.
Yeah, I seem to remember really struggling with the later fights in this one as well. You could get through the first few with relative ease, but then it would really ramp up the difficulty like crazy. Yeah,
I mean, this is one of the easier difficulty settings as well, and it's still incredibly tough. I can't imagine finishing it with ease. I mean, I used to be able to finish Street Fighter 2 Championship Edition on the 8-star, the highest difficulty, but this one was a far more difficult prospect.
Yeah, you're really having to resort to some spamming there.
Yeah, I think that's the only way you can feasibly win the games is by relying on running the timer out and spamming those moves.
Yeah, spamming the long range moves. I mean, that was always really the tactic on a lot of boss battles on old beat 'em up games, especially things like Goro in Mortal Kombat. You'd have to make use of those sort of manoeuvres.
And drop kicks, lots of drop kicks.
Definitely.
If in doubt, drop kick.
Sweep the leg. We got you get a bit of exposition here, but you don't really care. You just want to get on to the next fight, or not if you're not finding the fighting that enjoyable. Unfortunately, it just didn't really capture the hearts or imaginations of any players to a great extent. Tournament fighting.
No, I mean I don't think this reviewed particularly well in magazines. I think it probably got a lot of the 70s that kind of range.
Yeah, it definitely didn't get much critical acclaim in any way. No.
So we're fighting a shark now, which is as you do.
At least his level makes sense. He's a shark, so you're in a shipwreck. I suppose that makes some sort of sense, more so than the other levels.
That's true. That's not to say a game featuring mutated turtles should make sense, but it's always nice that they at least try.
Oh, there's nothing weird about that.
Round 2.
You see, this is where things start to really fall apart, and I just do very, very badly.
Perhaps we shouldn't embarrass you too much longer by showing off these brilliant fighting tactics of you.
Yeah, I can handle myself in a 2D beat 'em up, but for some reason I'm just not feeling it in this one. It's usually my technique will have a bit more finesse to it, but that's the kind of game it is. It's not really a technical fighting game. It's a spam the buttons and spam the attacks.
Yeah, the movesets aren't deep enough, and it just isn't, as you said, isn't responsive enough to make it that enjoyable, really.
No, I mean each turtle only has about 2 moves and probably a super move as well that you can only use in certain game modes. There is a super move which unfortunately in the mode I'm playing isn't available. It's a bit puzzling, really. I don't know why they take those things out for this.
No, it's a bit of a strange idea, that, especially when the movesets are so limited anyway. You wouldn't really want to minimise the variety there. It sort of does harken back to the bad old days of beat 'em ups, where each character was basically the same, just with a different skin and one or two special moves each. It's not a good example.
No, I mean I think there had been better beat 'em ups at the time, even the lower tier ones, the likes of Killer Instinct and Mortal Kombat, which I loved as a younger lad.
Yeah, I mean all those games had their own unique selling points as well. Anyway, didn't they? I mean, Mortal Kombat obviously was brutal, and people loved that. And Killer Instinct had its crazy combos, which was that was very much one of the first games which introduced a massive combo system. Whereas Turtles in Tournament Fighters just doesn't really have a hook to it.
No, and And I think with that, it's probably time to call it quits, I think. That's it for this week's GodisaGeek Retrocast and this month's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles theme. We release new videos every Tuesday, which you can watch as part of the GodisaGeek YouTube channel or as part of GodisaGeek TV on iTunes or Blip TV. You can also check us out on all our other podcasts, videos, news, reviews and previews at GodisaGeek.com. And finally, you can also follow us at the Retrocast for the latest goings on with the show. Until next week, happy gaming.
See you later.
Let's kick down. Round 3. Fight. Forward grip. Go. Forward grip. Forward grip. Forward grip. Forward grip. Let's kick down. Hey! Round 1. Fight! Jamboree! 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 Grip! Jamboree! Forward grip! Let's kick down. Round 2. Fight. Jamboree. 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 Forward grip. Let's kick down.